what that meant. Were much smaller. You were talking about putting in new floors, redoing some cabinetry in the room, adding fixing the windows, replacing some unit ventilators. Relatively modest renovation. We were fortunate in that we could free up some space within the school to create a block of classrooms that continually rotated throughout the year. We did need to put 3 classrooms into the gym for a period of time. If you ask Paul Perry, the principal there, he'll tell you we got through it okay. It's not something he'd ever want to do again. And it was very modest modification to all those rooms. Nothing like moving load-bearing walls, entire new ventilation system, plumbing systems, electrical systems that will be required if you renovate the bat shelter.
Okay. Along those lines, we don't even hear from the actual public safety group, I mean, police or fire, but Chris, I think your group kind of addressed this issue as well, right?
On
the idea of can we do it with the kids in there?
Right. Some people think we can. If you look at the size of the project, they're going to demolish a whole wing of the building. I don't know how many classrooms is in the old 50s wing. There are several in there.
12.
12. So that's almost half the classrooms. The modulars would be in the way for the new construction. So there's another 4. So that's 16 classrooms out of 26. 26 plus a library, I guess. So you've got more than half the school. The other issue is the safety of the children. You're doing major renovations there. They're going to be having to remove probably asbestos because of the old pipes that are hidden in the walls. They have asbestos around them, which is safe today because it's hidden and it's not being disturbed. They have to, there's just it's an amazing amount of work they have to do to renovate that building. There are going to be workmen in there that we don't know what their credentials are around children and things of that nature. When it's a small project, the principal knows exactly where those people are. They know exactly where the children are, and the teachers keep a close eye on them. You're going to have a bunch of people running around the building at that point.
To kind of follow up on a question, or the statement made by Jerry, those of you who are representing groups, I think just about everybody, Howard pointed to the fact that you guys have an opinion, you haven't been able to take an official vote yet, but I think everybody else has actually taken an official vote of recommendation for either what is now question 2 or question 3, badge rehab or Swan Pond. So I'd like, if you could just clarify to help everyone understand where your positions are, what those votes were coming into town meeting, which is what still stands at this point. We'll start at that end, so that's you guys in the school committee.
School committee unanimously endorsed the Swan Pond School and unanimously rejected the Batchelder School as a school proposal.
And we don't unanimously do anything.
We never took a vote on this. We would do things as site plan reviews, and we did one on the batch, a quick one, very little information. We're doing one Tuesday night on the Swan Pond site. We don't have a lot of information, but we have information on that site, and we're going to ask questions and send people off looking for answers for us probably, and we'll have them back. I do know that I believe all our members' personal opinion, including my own, is that Swan Pond is the place to do it, and we're late. We'd rather not spend the money. We'd like to be able to fix the batch and keep it as a center, but I don't think it's feasible. I know it's not feasible myself. That's my personal opinion. I believe all of my other board members don't think it's feasible to do.
Just to refresh, I guess as we're going around the table, as I alluded to earlier and I spoke at town meeting, we could not have a formal vote because we do not have a formal proposal that is complete. However, based on the information at hand and an analysis of the limited data that we have, we tend to be a little closer to unanimous perhaps in the school committee, but for us even unanimous is a good thing. We were unanimous against the proposal, most likely as it is today. We don't think it's going to be a workable proposal. As I did say, one member was on record of specifically wanting something in the center. I should also mention that when we look at the history, because we've been discussing this for several years, more than half of our board initially was interested in hearing about what this proposal might do. Of course, saving and renovating the batch in some form is very important to us. Once the details came back, Once the state specifications came back, once we saw the size and scope, we quickly moved to understand that it is very unlikely that anything resembling what we need in the school needs in that particular school would work within the district. The other thing I want to say very, very briefly, because it hasn't come up yet, and I suspect there's probably no good way to do this, but I'm going to try. This is a picture, and you can contact one of my members at some point if this is not, I didn't think so. This is a picture of the batch in the early 1940s. And what it shows is the entirety of the original amphitheater, which was roughly a 180. I would say about half of it is sitting there right now. The reason I bring this up is that the town has a unique opportunity, if we do renovate the batch for office or other use, to tear down the addition and to reconstitute this amphitheater, which I think anyone who's been in town a long time will understand is a nice addition to a beautiful space.
And there's the plug from the HDC.
I'll climb down from the soapbox.
Mark, the FinCom?
The FinCom did vote prior to the special town meeting, and we unanimously voted to recommend the Swan Pond School, and unanimously voted not to recommend the batch reuse.
Okay. And though we're not an official town body, the CAC did have an endorsement, and we do endorse, in this case, question 3 or Swan Pond, and do not endorse the batch rehab, just so everything's out on the table for everybody. Amy, do you have a question?
We have some up there.
Someone in the audience has some.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Laurie Capizzuto. You mentioned some possible reuses for the badge. Can anybody expand on that? Should Swan Pond win out? I don't know that anybody's really talking about potential reuse for the badge other than school.
I'd be happy to take the first stab at that, because I've been on FUMP and my board's been very involved in as we look at this. The most important thing, just very briefly, before that, as we learned with the Damon Tavern, is to make sure that a building is taken care of up front, that at or before its vacation by another purpose, that there be a plan for it, because we almost lost the tavern and we don't want to allow that to happen again. There have been, over the last 2 years, 2 primary plans on the table by FUMP and others. One says if we tear down the annex, which is that 1949 rectangle, that we use the original bachelor, renovate it into office space, and use it for school administration. As I believe Steve Jervy alluded to earlier, we need to look at the needs of the middle and high school. I believe that those uses are currently in the middle school. That will give us extra space at the middle school to allow that to grow as the student needs grow there. There is also has been a discussion, but I believe it is becoming much less likely right now, but I want to have everything on the table. There has been a discussion that if we were to keep the 1949 wing, that one option could be to move Town Hall from its current site here at the Murphy Center. FUMP had a vote, I want to say it was a couple weeks ago, against that. The Historic District Commission, as well as saying that the ability and the chance to remove that 1949 wing is a good thing. Everything appears to be coalescing around school administrative use. That's not to say that people wouldn't be open to other options, but right now, based on everything we've looked at and where we've been over the last several years, FUMP, as you may know, has been kind of plopping around here for about 3 or 4 years now. That's kind of where we sit on things, and it seems like a good use for the reasons that I've said.
Mark?
Just to elaborate, FUMP did take a formal vote a few weeks ago to leave Town Hall here, recommend the tearing down of the annex, and school administration to move as Tower 11.
Okay. And so school committee, will you guys discuss this?
2 points I'd like to make. One is that we have talked about moving the school administration in. The space would work beautifully. It's actually more space than school administration would require. There would be some room available for other public uses, but it would provide an occupant for that building, and we would use probably the top floor. But secondly, it's also important to point out that we have to start moving ahead with planning on the middle school. And if we don't have an approved plan for the bachelor students, we can't plan on moving the school administration into the bachelor building, and the plans for the middle school would have to continue to house that administration in the middle school. So it's important from a number of perspectives that we get this issue settled quickly.
Todd, I think it's important too that I don't want to get hung up on people bringing in a cost for rehabbing the batch for any other use. It's not gonna cost us $3, $4, or $5 million. First of all, we don't have to do anything with the batch for at least 2 and maybe 3 years until the new school is built. And second of all, I don't think it's gonna cost us, as Howard said, we need to maintain it to make sure that it doesn't get, structurally any worse than it is. But I don't think we have to spend millions and millions of dollars to do something with the batch, and that should not be a real serious consideration when we're talking about building the new school, about worrying about what we're gonna do with the batch out of the school.
It's also important to remember that the main negative of small classroom space is actually something of a positive when you're talking about putting in small offices. So you won't have to tear down a lot of walls, you won't have the kind of significant destruction internally of the building, which is where all those costs come in. You would be able to simply do things like patch this, fix that, make changes here, and it's actually going to be significantly less expensive in the long run.
Okay, thank you. Another question from the floor?
Marcy Bailey. I actually have 2 separate questions for 2 panelists, so I'll do the first one first. This is for Chris Hayden of the CPC. I would like to know a little bit more about the Swan Pond site and perhaps, issues, concerns there, and specifically vis-a-vis the water tower and also the septic, and also any particular concerns you'd have similarly on the batch site by the commission.
Well, let's do septic. The batch, we just put in a septic field for the batch recently. I think the new renovation of the batch, if there was a renovation of the batch, we would have to end up moving tanks at a minimum and probably reconstituting the field, because there'd be driveways over the leaching field, I believe, or parking lots. And presently, the field was not constructed so that it could handle heavy traffic. You can't, unless you construct those fields properly, you can't put cars on them all the time. If it had been done that way, then you could put a parking lot over it, but they'll have to probably reconstitute at least part of it, if not all of it, and maybe make it larger, I'm not sure. I don't do that design work. I do have, in 1996, Martin Fair, I guess at least a backhoe operator from the town, Shep Spear, and I believe, Trish Colella, and maybe John Norton. Was John Norton there too?
Yes.
John Norton, they actually did 8 test pits at the Swan Pond site. One of the 8, I guess it was test pit 8 from what I see here from the old records, was a good location, a perkable location as they say, for a septic field. And there was a paper design done. I don't think, it's never been flushed out, but there is a design. Yeah, I'm sorry. Should have been fleshed out, not flushed out. Yeah, you like that. Martin Fair actually came up with some numbers for John Norton. The septic tank would have to be 12,000 gallons. There'd be an 8,000 gallon dosing tank required. Now that's a secondary tank down the line. And then a 6,700 square feet leaching field. And I can show you an overhead here. I believe the school profile or layout is different, if I'm not mistaken. Not significantly. It's more square, I think it's more rectangular now. But that's not the big deal. Here is the septic and dosing tank, and this is the field. And it looks like there's 2 fields. Of course, we have to have a field for a spare in case the first field has a problem, and sometimes they do later on down the line, and they need to be replaced, and they just leave them defunct and pipe it to the new field. So that was done, I guess it was August of '96. Problem was, this map disappeared, and I guess it was found at Todd Lee's, or TLRC, or somebody had it. We just found it. So some of the other information was available. We always had the actual test pit information, and this just came up or was located. So that's the issue on this septic field. Now for the water tower,